This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Amazon for all your gifting needs.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the coziest scuba matching set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
All right. Welcome back. It's Fit Nation. All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, _Misfit Nation. So you'll stay up to date on all of our episodes and our awesome guests that come on the show. Our next guest, he quit drinking in 2015, quit smoking marijuana in 2016, and changed his life completely. His first book, Alcoholics Not Anonymous, A Modern Way to Quit Drinking, describes the method he created for himself to get sober. So without further ado, let's welcome Paul Trammell to the Misfit Nation. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for taking some of your time to come on here.
Absolutely, no problem. And thank you for having me.
I think it took us about a month to get connected, but this is well worth it. Well worth to get your story out there and let people hear how you did that. And it's no easy feat what you've done, and a lot of people struggle with it. So, if you'd like to, just tell us a little story of your backstory from as far back as you want to go to where we are now.
All right, sure. I started drinking when I was 13, and I think I probably started smoking weed at the same time. I've always had trouble with alcohol. Even back then, I look way back when I was, in high school, and I remember I look back and I definitely made some stupid decisions, just because I wanted to go out drinking. And then, but it got worse when I got to college, and I got a DUI when I was 19. I got arrested with a fake ID, I think, when I was 17. Wow. I got arrested for smoking weed when I was about 14.
Wow. They knew you.
Oh my goodness. Bringing back some memories here, going down memory road. I was a good kid. I just did what I wanted to do. If I wanted to do something, I did it. And if all of a sudden the cops were there, I was shocked. And all of a sudden they're taking me downtown and calling my parents, and they're shocked. But yeah, so I had a few run-ins with the law, but anyway, I actually quit 3 times. I quit once when I was in high school, and then I quit once when I was in college. I lasted 2 years without drinking when I was in college. All of a sudden started getting straight A's. That makes a huge difference in your mental ability, the alcohol, the weed too. But I really started drinking heavily after school, after college, and it went on for a long time, and I got up to where I was drinking about a 12-pack a day and was smoking weed like it was cigarettes. I grew weed too for a little while. Wow. And yeah, I was way into it. I was in a reggae band. I was a musician playing in reggae bands and living the life. We went on tour a couple of times and we had some fun. Those were good times, don't get me wrong, but it was destructive. And eventually I got to a point where I knew that I had a problem. It was obvious. I was hungover every day, and I was just going into debt. I wasn't making enough money. It's hard to work. I was a carpenter. I was an independent contractor, so I could show up late, and because I was hungover, and so I wasn't making as much money as I was spending. And So for the last couple of years of my drinking, I knew that I needed to quit, but I just couldn't see doing it. It was part of my life. So then one day at a party, Super Bowl Sunday, 2015, I ran into a friend. My friend Jim was at the party, and I remember he looked really good and clean and happy and well dressed, and his hair was nice, and like I'm looking at him like, yeah, Jim looks good. And then but he doesn't have a beer in his hand, so I said, "Hey Jim, you want a beer?" And he said, "No thanks, I quit drinking." And he had a smile on his face. I'm like, "Oh, you got to tell me how you did it, why you did it." And he said, "Well, my brother died. His brother drank himself to death slowly over a long period of time, died a very long and slow death of internal organ failure at 40 years old.
Wow.
From drinking too much. And I was 44 at the time, I think. So that hit home. It really hit home. And I decided the next day I was going to quit. And part of my strategy, as the title of my book, Alcoholics Not Anonymous, suggests, my strategy was to just come right out and tell people. I got nothing against AA. I think it's great. I think it works obviously for a whole lot of people. And I've been, I had to, court appointed, had to go at one point. So I've learned, I definitely learned a bit from them. I've only been to probably 4 meetings in my life, but I think I read their book. Good stuff in it for sure. I'm just not a group therapy kind of guy. So I decided I was going to quit. I told some people, I told my friends, I booked a meeting with a therapist just to make it real, just to be accountable to someone, just so I couldn't change my mind, right then and there, like later on that day. Like if you book a meeting with a therapist, you got to go. And what are you going to do? Like go and say, "Oh yeah, I wanted to quit drinking, but I changed my mind." So I thought that might help in the beginning, and it did. She wasn't even an addiction therapist. She was like a family counselor. She was a woman that I happened to know. So that helped. And I went out and just, especially after I got a week into it, I got right up on Facebook and said, "Hey everybody, I've gone 7 days without a beer. Can you believe it?" And I couldn't believe the support I got just from that one post, just way more comments and likes than any of my other posts, ever got. So I was really surprised about that. So I kept doing it every, after a month, I do it again, and the second month, and I still do it, every now and then. So that became a big help. And I told my family, I asked my brother to check up on me, to call me or text me, regularly, as often as he could, daily, hopefully, ask if I was still sober, just so I would be accountable to somebody. And that's one of the techniques that worked for me. So anyway, strangers started sending me direct messages from Facebook. They had read my posts and they want to get sober too. And they're trying and they're failing, and, various situations, various people asking me for advice. And so I would sit and think about their question and write out an answer. And I communicated with quite a few people like that for a long time. And eventually I came to realize, here I've developed my own method. I have helped a whole bunch of people, and I've written a lot of good advice just through Facebook Messenger. So I went through and copied and pasted everything I'd written, copied from Messenger, pasted it into Word, and then, started the long process of putting together a book and editing it and making it into an actual book. And it describes what I did to get sober and to stay sober. It's just straight up advice, actual things to do to not drink anymore. The book sold. It's sold way better than I thought it would, and that started my career as a writer, which is what I'm doing now.
That's an awesome journey right there, and the revelations, like you said, a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous, they like to keep everything quiet and secret. By you bringing it out there, it probably raised up your, I want to say, a fan base or people to motivate you, and you motivated them at the same time, because they probably were afraid and not willing to go to a group setting. A lot of people hate the group setting. It's not good for everybody. Right. Whereas most counselors always want to push group on people, not realizing that it doesn't work for everyone. And Yeah, some people are just a me person. If I look in the mirror and I don't like what I see, I have to fix me. And I think when you had that eye opener when your friend's brother died at 40 years old, after suffering long from everything shutting down due to alcohol, and that's an eye opener. That's your aha moment. That's basically your why, and then your how was motivated by that as well.
Exactly. That was my why. I mean, that was the last straw. You know, that was just like the spark. You know, the real why was my health was declining. I was getting, I was starting to get overweight, bags under my eyes. I was aging, I could see it, and I was becoming unhealthy. And I've always been an athlete of one sort or another. And I just couldn't stand to see that happening to me. My finances were also bad at the time. They were just getting worse and worse, and that was stressful. I had nightmares all the time. I don't have nightmares anymore. I think it was my mind telling me that there's something wrong in your life. There's a demon that's chasing you, and it's eating you away slowly, and you got to do something about it. So, the why was all that, health, finances, literally being sick every day until I started drinking again, or until I got high. I'd wake up every morning and smoke weed, take away the nausea. And so, how did I quit? First, I made myself accountable to a bunch of people, and I came out and said everything. And I started. One thing I did was I saved money. I took the cash that I would have spent on alcohol, and I put it in a box, like a wooden cigar box. And I looked at that. I would pull it out and look at it occasionally, hold that wad of cash in my hand and count it and look at it and think. And then I started thinking, well, I need to spend this on something eventually. And I thought, well, yeah, after 1 year, you should spend it on something. So that gave me a good goal. And when the 1 year came around, I bought a 1 week sailing class, and I just absolutely fell in love with sailing. And right about then, Alcoholics Not Anonymous was published and selling. And I ended up buying a sailboat that year and taking off on a great adventure, 1,000 miles offshore, solo, by myself. And I hardly knew what the heck I was doing. So that was a huge adventure. That became my second book. And when that book started selling, that's called Becoming a Sailor. When that book started selling, I realized, okay, now I can chase this old dream I've always had of actually living on a boat and sailing and, cruising and living full time. Because the big question is, how do you make money when you're doing that? And,
right.
Writing became that. And I became a writer because I quit drinking and smoking weed. You can't write when you're high. You can hardly read when you're high. I was a reader when I was a kid, and as I became older and got, was smoking weed all day, every day, I quit reading because you can't, you can physically like read a page or something. You can read the instructions on the back of, or whatever. You can physically read, but the comprehension goes down so low that I can't read a book. It's just not enjoyable because you're not comprehending it. So yeah, I quit reading. But anyway, the fact that I quit smoking weed allowed me to write books that people actually want to buy and read. Quitting smoking weed was more difficult for me than quitting drinking. It shocked me. It shocked and amazed me at how hard it was to quit and how difficult the first month was. I mean, I went through withdrawals that I did not expect. I mean, I remember in grade school they taught us that weed was not addictive, and I always believed that. And that's what everybody around me always said. It's not addictive. We can quit whenever I want. No, it's actually that the medical community actually considers it an addictive drug now, and it's obvious to me because holy crap, it was tough, man. It was tough. First month, it took me 2 tries.
Wow.
I gave it up for a whole month. I think 6 months into not drinking. Yeah. And about 6 months in, I gave up weed for a whole month, and I was still in the band, and we had a gig coming up, and I had not been able to sleep at all for 4 nights in a row. 4 nights. And this is after not smoking for like 28 days. And I'm still suffering from the insomnia that it causes. And I went ahead and started smoking again because we had a big gig the next day, and I was just over like the insomnia, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to perform the next day, so I went ahead and got high, and continued to until 1 year after I quit drinking. I tried again, and that time it worked. That time I left the country. I went on a sailing trip where an offshore sailing trip with some other people who didn't smoke weed, and anyway, I made it work that time. But that was difficult. No doubt.
I'm sure it helped to not be around others who were smoking or have easy access to it while you're on the sailing trip. That it helped a little bit to keep you away from it and make you stronger.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone out there is trying to quit something, whatever drug it is, the more things in your life you change, the easier it's going to be to quit. And especially if you can get out of town and go somewhere else for the beginning of it, you're not going to have all your old triggers. You're not going to have all your friends, and you're not going to be driving by the same liquor store that you always drive by, and you're not going to have your weed dealer down the street. You can just walk down there and get a bag of weed. If you change all of that, if you can go somewhere and get away from all that, it's going to be easier, especially in the beginning. Now, and for me, as you see, I live on a boat now. I sold my house. I quit my job. I'm not in the band anymore. I don't live in that town anymore. Everything's different. My boat is a sanctuary. There's no alcohol ever or drugs on my boat. That makes it a lot easier for me. I'm separated from land. There's not a bar that I can just go walk to. I can't walk down the street or hop in my truck and go to the 7-Eleven, and get a quart or a 12-pack or get a quart because I already drank the 12-pack.
Right.
That used to happen.
I guess you can swim a long ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a temptation. You take away all that temptation, and things are much easier. So I'm 7 years sober now. I don't struggle too much with it anymore. But if I'm around people smoking weed, I tell you what, that's more of a temptation to me even now, 6 years later, than the alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah, because I can remember what a hangover feels like. I can remember that nausea from drinking too much, but you got to drink another beer. You're already drunk and you're already nauseous, but there's 4 more beers in the fridge, and by God, I'm going to drink at least 2 or 3 more of them before I go to bed. And it's 11 o'clock and I got to get up at 6 and go to work the next day, but I'm going to drink it. Like, I remember all that bad stuff. I remember waking up hungover, still drunk,
trying to battle through it as you go to work.
Yeah. Like I remember all that, but see, weed doesn't have that. So I remember the good parts of it.
Right.
There's not, so that's one reason why it's more difficult, but man, I tell you what, like, my brain works so much better now that I don't do either of those things. Like, both of them inhibit your thinking a lot.
That's an awesome accomplishment. Now 6-7 years later, you have now 5 books out, and what a
7. There's a moth flying around me.
Okay,
I've got 7 books published now.
7 books published.
Yeah, I might have had 5 when we were first talking. I published 2 of them recently.
Okay.
I was still in Panama when we first got into contact with each other. And
right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's outstanding. 2 more out there. So that's 7 books in 7 years. That's pretty good. That's a lot for anybody. You became very productive in your writing skills. Did you have a mentor when you were younger that wrote a lot, or maybe an author that you looked up to that maybe influenced you?
I did not have a writing mentor, but my mother always pushed us to read books. So I've been reading since I was young. I was in grade school, maybe 4th grade. I don't know, somewhere in that age, when I read The Hobbit, Tolkien's. I think it took me a year, to read The Hobbit. I probably read an average of 1 page a day, but I got through it and I loved it. And I read that whole series, over the next few years. And I've been a reader ever since. And, like a lot of people, I always thought, like, I'd like to write a book. I think I could probably write a book. So that's always been sort of in the back of my head. But gosh, I don't know what, if any particular writer has spurred me to. It was all just because I had written so many as funny as it sounds, I'd written so many messages on Facebook Messenger that I knew if I just organized it and thought about it some more, I could put together a book.
That's kind of what I just did as well. Last year, during the first year of the pandemic, every month I put welcome to the next level of Jumanji, and I give some stats and stuff. And you've done this, you made it through the fire, done this, and at the end of the year, it made 13 steps to success. And someone said you should put that in a book, so I did, and that just published. The 13-step guide to success came from basically Facebook posts.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's writing. That's one thing about social media. It gets slammed a lot for people love to kick around social media, but the reality is it is writing. You are typing on a keyboard and you are writing, and you've got to organize your thoughts and you got to communicate them to other people. And those are skills that happen through writing, that are developed through writing. And writing Facebook posts is writing, no doubt about it. So is texting.
Yes.
It's writing.
Not as fast on the text, but I can do some typing.
Cool. Yeah. Yep. And so I wrote another book about alcoholism called The Joy of Living Clean and Sober. That's recently published. That's just sort of similar to my first book, but it's me looking through it, from 7 years of sobriety, what has worked for me, how to stay sober.
And I think your schooling for sailing helped you out a lot too, and that gave you your love of sailing. How far do you sail outside of the Gulf region there, from the Atlantic side all the way to Panama? We know you've been both ways. How far else have you gone?
The longest sailing I've done by myself has been, just recently, 8 days. Panama to Jamaica took me 8 days when I was coming back. And I've done a couple of 7-day sails. You're talking about 120 miles a day or so. So the one Panama to Jamaica was 900 or 1,000 miles, maybe.
Wow.
It seems like a long time, when you're out there when you're by yourself, especially. I did a 2-week sail with someone once, but that was with another person. It was much easier. You got 2 people.
You get to talk to somebody.
You can talk and you can sleep for 5-6 hours at a time, instead of I sleep 20 minutes at a time when I'm sailing solo.
Wow.
That takes a little getting used to. It works. But it takes some getting used to, for sure.
It definitely does.
It does.
So we already talked about how you started writing, but just basically off your Facebook messages and such like that. Yep. How would someone else, if they don't use Facebook, how would you give them advice to start their writing career?
To start a writing career, step one is to sit down and do it. Before you're not going to have an idea, a whole idea for a book all thought out in your head when you sit down. You might not have any ideas, but you got to sit down and start. Ray Bradbury gave great advice in his book about how to write. He wrote short stories for a lot of his career, and he would publish one a week. And one of the things he said in his book, he said that for years, and he recommends writers do this: sit down every morning, early in the morning, first thing, and write a short story. Now, that sounds difficult, but you have to give yourself permission to write like total junk, something that's worthless. Like it's okay if it's going to be really bad. So he says, sit down, and to get the ball rolling, he says, type out random words. Type out a dozen completely random words, whatever pops into your head first, and then look at those words and associate them and play around with them, some word association, and make a story. Get a story from it, and then just start writing. It's just improvisational. It's like what I used to do on the guitar, for hours at a time. Improvisation. It doesn't have to be good. It's just practice. And then all of a sudden you realize when you're playing the guitar and you're improvising, you realize, man, these 3 chords here, man, that's a song. Right. This little thing I'm doing right now, that's a song. Bam. Oh, that's born. Song is born. That's how it happens. It happens through improvisation. Writing's the same way. So you got to sit down and you got to do it. You can start by writing short stories. You got to give yourself permission to write total crap. It's fine. You just have to do it. You have to do it, and you have to edit. Once you actually have a book going, once you actually have a rough draft, which might take a year, it might take 2 years. But once you have that, then it's time to edit and reread and rewrite. And you go back and, I go back through my books from the first draft. I'll go back at least 10 times, read the whole thing and write more and edit. It's a long process, but after, I'm putting out about one a year, and after a year of work and you got a book, man, it's a great accomplishment. So, and
you have a perfect place to sit and write with no distractions.
Yeah, that helps. Living by myself on a sailboat, this is a good environment to write in for sure.
Has any of your destinations given you inspiration for your books?
Absolutely. 3 of them are sailing nonfiction. So I'm writing about the sailing. So that's directly influenced by the surroundings. That's what's happening. I'm trying to share the adventure. I've written 2 novels, and they are based on experience. So one great advice, a piece of advice I've gotten that's common in writing is write what you know about. Write about, even if you're writing fiction, you can take your own experiences and make up stories based on it. So the first novel I wrote, it's called Dead Flowers on Wednesday. And that was based very loosely based on my band's first tour. It was so much fun. We rented a school bus with a driver, and the school bus was converted into a tour bus. It was like totally ghetto style, but it was a legit tour bus that ran on vegetable oil. It was the veggie bus. So we didn't have to pay for fuel. While we're playing gigs, the driver would go find a restaurant, at 2 a.m. and take their used vegetable oil that was going to be thrown out. There's tanks behind restaurants that are full of vegetable oil. So he would go and put a hose in it and suck it all out and filter it. And that was our fuel, So we drove around for 2 weeks in this veggie bus from Florida up through Tennessee and into the Carolinas and into West Virginia, which is where I'm originally from. Played a bunch of gigs, had some of the best times of my life, and so I made up a novel that's based on that. And then I also wrote another novel that's based on sailing, on fictionalizing my sailing experiences. I'm always spearfishing and freediving and spearfishing. So when I'm doing that, I'm also looking for treasure. I've never found anything, but I'm always looking, right? So
someday you will.
So that book is about a guy who does find treasure while he's spearfishing.
Is that the Gold Box?
The Gold Box.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my latest novel.
That's a great cover on that too. I like that.
Thanks.
And the cover on the book, first book you spoke about, the motorcycle with the guitar. Looks like guitar in the back. I can't tell the other thing. That's pretty badass picture.
Shotgun.
Okay. That's pretty. Nice.
I drew that.
Well.
That's my artwork there. The cover of the Gold Box was made by a friend who just offered to do it on Facebook.
Awesome.
Another Facebook score. Yeah.
See, Facebook is good for stuff. It's not all evil like they say.
It is good. I mean, I use it. I'm a podcaster as well, and I get most of my interviewees from it. When I see sailors have done something incredible, or any sailor I see on there that looks like they're going to have a good story, I'll contact them.
So outside of Facebook, how does someone contact you to get on your show, or have you talked to them?
Well, I meet people. I meet other sailors while I'm sailing, obviously. I haven't had too many people contact me wanting to. Actually, the last person I interviewed contacted me, maybe through Instagram. So it's all about the social media these days. That is modern communication.
Yes, I think it's the easiest way.
Yeah. It's not just cat videos, and photographs of people's dinner.
Or weird dance trends.
Weird dance trends. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Paul,
it's
useful.
It's been great chatting with you, learning your story. Awesome journey you've been on. You've been the highs, lows, and now I think what you're doing right now is amazing. Your freedom on the open water, your sailboat. I believe that's the picture of the sailboat on a couple of your covers there. That looks amazing as well. I wish you nothing but success in the future. And thanks again for coming on Misfit Nation.
Hey, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. You know how we do this. Thanks for taking some of your time to spend with us on Misfit Nation. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and share the link as much as possible. If you want to, please become a supporter to help us carry this thing on. We appreciate you. If you know someone that brings that energy, has a great story, is an up-and-comer in the industry of music, in the arts, have them reach out to us on themisfitnation.com. We will get back to them within one day and get them on here so they can share their story with the world. As always, till next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are Fit Nation.